Today, we are comparing Dallas, Texas to Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, I have lived in both of these places. I've also been a real estate agent in both of these places. And let me tell you, there are some big differences. Now, the first thing that I noticed personally, and this may sound trivial, is that there are trees everywhere in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our highways are literally lined with trees that are taller than most of our buildings. In fact, it can be a little daunting at night when you're driving because it gets so dark and it's hard to tell where you're at times. It took me forever to learn where I was at and what highway I was on because everything looked the same. You go driving down the highway in Dallas and you can see everything around you, all the businesses, there's lights everywhere. It's gonna be a different vibe in Raleigh, North Carolina. On another note, commuting is actually much easier in Raleigh. And it's kind of funny because when I first moved here, people would always complain about the commuting. They would complain about traffic and construction. And I'm like, listen, if you had ever lived in Dallas like I had, you'd be cheering right now because the difference is astronomical. Raleigh is roughly a fourth of the size that Dallas is. We don't have near as much congestion, near as much people, and you'll definitely feel it. We also have worse roads in Texas because of the sun and the climate, so they're constantly doing construction, constantly expanding to meet the new needs of all the people rushing in. Now, Raleigh is growing too, and they're actually working on building a new highway to add to their system. People definitely drive differently down here. In Texas, many people own trucks. They're going 80 or 90 on the interstate, and it's completely normal. You better be in the slow lane if you're going the speed limit. In Raleigh, on the other hand, most people are going about 60, 65, and that's honestly the speed limit of most of our interstates. And when you think about it, it makes sense. It doesn't take as long to get to where you need to go. In Texas, things are so spread out, and it's such a large metroplex that it usually takes 30 minutes to an hour to get to anything, whether that's a friend's house or a wedding reception or work. Here in Raleigh, I can get anywhere in about 10-15 minutes, whether that's downtown or the airport. Now let's talk about real estate. Like I said, I was a real estate agent in Texas, and I am a local real estate agent here in Raleigh, North Carolina, helping locals sell and buy their homes. Dallas real estate is almost entirely built on slab or sticks. There's no basements in Texas. When you get to Raleigh, you'll find that a decent percentage of them, especially the older homes, have basements. Or you'll also see a lot of split levels where it's not technically a basement, but for all intents and purposes it is. You'll also see a lot more side paneling, the vinyl paneling on the side of homes, while in Texas, every house is basically just brick. And that's because of the climate, right? Raleigh, Dallas, they have different climates, different weather, different temperatures, which we'll get into that later. Another difference you'll find is that because those Texas homes typically have the concrete foundation, you will access everything through the attic or through the top of your garage. Meanwhile, in Raleigh, we actually use what's called crawl spaces. Now, these come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, but basically they allow you or workers to access the property, whether that's the pipes or the wires or the HVAC. It can be all accessed underneath your home. Some of these crawl spaces are so large that they have giant swinging doors and you can literally walk right underneath your home. Now, common styles that you'll see among homes in Dallas may be Mediterranean, it may be ranch style, or a little more on the modern side. While in Raleigh, we do have all of those styles mixed with other pockets like historic homes and even some Victorian style homes as well. We can also see that Dallas has slightly larger lots and property sizes than Raleigh homes. And that kind of makes sense considering how spread out things are in Dallas, Texas versus Raleigh. Now let's talk about cost of living, because obviously that's an important factor. It definitely was to me when I made the decision to move here myself. The cost of living is 5.6% higher in Raleigh versus Dallas, Texas. The cost of housing is 33% higher in Raleigh versus Dallas, Texas. You will also find that Raleigh has state income tax while Dallas does not. Now, I know this sounds like a bunch of doom and gloom, but let's look on the positive side. Because of the state income tax, you'll find that Raleigh has significantly lower property taxes. So if you plan to invest in a lot of real estate, or you're just worried about how much property taxes you're gonna pay on your home, it will definitely be noticeably lower than if you were in Dallas, Texas. And keep in mind, Dallas is one of the most affordable places to buy a house. It is a great market for buying a house. But if you're coming from somewhere like California or New York, Raleigh is still a great option for you. This is especially true if you are a younger individual. It is on average younger than other major cities, including Dallas, Texas. And that has to do a lot with the massive amount of tech companies that are moving in, including companies like Google, that are attracting young working professionals. We have traveling nurses, people in big pharma. Not to mention Durham is a major attraction for college students because we have Duke University and UNC. And this is also why we expect very impressive appreciation over the next few years, because we are set for massive growth. That's right, this place is heating up. But you know what? Dallas is actually heating up more. No surprise, Dallas, the very south state, is hot. It's very, very hot, and that's one of the reasons that I actually left it in the first place. And just like the commuting thing, people here seem to think that they're in the hottest place on the earth, and I find it really funny. Yes, there is more humidity in Raleigh, North Carolina, but coming from Texas, and looking at the numbers, I can tell you that Raleigh, North Carolina is almost always 10 degrees cooler than Dallas, Texas. And this is true for almost every season of the year. And yes, Raleigh gets 4 seasons, and that is a big, major draw for people coming from Texas. Why? Because Dallas only has 2 seasons. For about 80% of the year it's summer, and then there's a quick 20% where it gets really, really cold, people freak out, everything closes down, and then we're back at it again. If you want October leaves and fall and pumpkin patches, and you want winter with a little bit of snow but not too much, you know, just something to give you a reason to drink hot chocolate. And then you go into spring and you get a nice cool spring with some rainy weather, and finally you get summer. Not miserably hot to where you can't walk outside without leaving footprints where you've walked on the sidewalk. But like summer where you can actually enjoy it and go to the beach. I know that was a bit of a rant, but I genuinely found myself in Texas avoiding going outside for about half of the year because I knew that I would just get hot and sweaty and sunburnt, and I did not like it. Now, if you're the kind of person who needs excessive heat, you don't mind, you'll go outside no matter what, then great, good for you. But if you're a little more like me and you value staying active, but you need the nature and the climate to support it, then Raleigh's for you. There are 2 major trails that run throughout Raleigh-Durham that people use every day to stay active, to get out there and take a walk or a bike. On top of that, you will also find several large lakes with infinite trails around those that you can go kayaking at, or fishing, or hiking. There's plenty to keep you active. On the East Coast, you have access to the Outer Banks, as well as Wilmington Beach. If you go south into South Carolina, not too much further, you have access to Myrtle Beach as well. In the mountains, you have several amazing towns to visit, like Asheville, North Carolina, Boone, Blowing Rock, or if you want to go further, you can go into Gatlinburg over in Tennessee. Personally, I just find it much easier to go outside, take a walk every weekend with my wife than when I lived in Texas. But that might just be my opinion. And let's not kid ourselves, Dallas has equally if not more things to do. It's a really large metroplex. In fact, what I found in Dallas was I was always finding new places, new things to do. When I left, I found myself thinking, geez, why didn't I do this, or why didn't I try that? But I definitely didn't feel like I was losing out on things to do when I moved here. And in fact, I just replaced a lot of the things that I used to have to pay for with free things like going to parks and going on walks. Now, what you really probably want to know is, after living in both Dallas and Raleigh, what is my personal take on it? And I'm just gonna be straightforward with you. I like Raleigh, North Carolina. I think Dallas is great, it has a great economy and great people. I miss people from Dallas. But what I get with Raleigh, North Carolina is the lifestyle that I want. And if you've related to a lot of the things that I've said in this video, then maybe the lifestyle of Raleigh, North Carolina might be for you. I'd love to be a resource for you. I know you probably have questions, whether that's about different places to check out, the different areas, the suburbs, the real estate market. Let me and my team help you by clicking the link in the description or calling the number below. And if you're already planning a move, it's not too late to call. Click one of the videos on my right to learn more about the moving process, and subscribe for more Raleigh lifestyle content. I'll see you next week.